I'm calling this using a memorandum of agreement affecting real estate. So that's a particular document. And the point of this is sometimes our exit strategy, what we think we're going to do, changes once we learn what the market's response is to our offering of a house for sale. Now, I want to be extremely clear because this gets right up on the line to where it could be problematic in the sense of you cannot operate as a realtor without a license. You cannot do that. Meaning, if you put a property under contract, your intention needs to be to actually close on that contract. And my intention always is. My intention is that I'm going to get somebody who's going to do a little better than what I did with my seller, simultaneously close and fund my purchase from my seller out of the buyer's proceeds that I'm getting at the time of the closing. That's always my intent. My intention is never, I'll find a buyer for your house. If you're a realtor, you can say that. If you aren't a realtor, you've just violated the law in all 50 states. You cannot operate as a realtor without a license. You cannot operate as a broker, finding somebody a buyer for somebody's house in all 50 states. Okay, you're finding a buyer for you. You are finding a buyer for you. You're finding a buyer for you. You're finding a buyer for you. If I get one more email from anyone who's listened to this, where they're copying me on an email that they sent the seller and it says something like, I'll find you a buyer, I'm going to have to virtually slap you across the face on the Zoom. Because I would never slap you in person, but I can virtually slap you on the Zoom, right? So don't be doing that. Not smart, particularly in writing, okay? Sometimes you still want to get paid. You're not going to be able to assign the deal, and you're not going to be able to simultaneously close. And I'm going to explain why in a second. But I want to make it abundantly clear that your intention to purchase the property, even when all you have is a contract and you're giving yourself 90 days to sort of see how the market responds, my intention is always to close. I'm just unclear of exactly who I'm going to close with, exactly what that deal is going to look like, and I just don't know really until my buyer appears. So that makes me, and this is why your conversion ratio goes through the roof, that makes me willing to pretty much accept almost anything that the seller wants. Whatever the seller wants, I can put it under contract as long as they're willing to give me 90 days. I'm going to go out and find my buyer, and if I don't get a buyer that brings me a juicy enough deal that I can actually accommodate what I am contracted to pay the seller, then I can go back to that seller and say, here's the way the market is responding. And if I can't get somebody to beat what you want here, you're not going to be able to do it on your own because you're not going to run a marketing campaign like the likes of the one that I've been running with our three-pronged attack, right? So what I'm saying is we need to renegotiate our deal so that I can actually make some money on this. I'm not running a not-for-profit organization on purpose, but you'll get as close, you'll get better in this deal with me than you will if I just walk away from this, lose the earnest money that I gave you, whatever it was, $10, $100, whatever, and you go it alone. But this is the buyer. We've marketed for this person. We got him, and this is about as good as it's going to get. And you can renegotiate that deal. That's effectively the premise of a 90-day close. We intend to buy it under the terms that we've got from the seller, but sometimes it ends up having to change because of the market conditions. And we're not at, we don't have a magic, crystal ball. We can just rub it and we know exactly what's going to happen next. Sometimes the market responds differently than we expect. Okay, so sometimes you're going to have to use this technique that I'm going to show you. So the example that I'm going to use here is a deal where I wanted to buy the house on the terms that I was given from the seller, but I didn't want to close on it because the terms weren't really that great. I wanted to make sure that the market would respond to this and that I could get a buyer either off my list, from marketing that I'm doing. Now remember now, folks, some laws have been put in place in Illinois and Oklahoma and other places where you cannot market an equitable interest in a property, meaning you cannot even market publicly for the sale of a property until you actually own it. So this goes out the door in Oklahoma. It goes out the door after you've done one in Illinois. There's a few other places where this is a concern, but I still want you to understand how this goes down. Let me back that up a minute. Let me rewind that because I think I said that in the wrong way. No, I said it in the right way. You can still use this strategy in Oklahoma, Illinois, all the places that have banned wholesaling, or at least put some limitations on wholesaling. You just can't market it in the ways that we traditionally would market it publicly until you either own the house or you have a realtor involved. Now, there is some question because we are going to have a realtor involved in what I'm going to show you here because we list all of our properties on the MLS, and if it's a flat fee listing, there is a realtor involved. So there's not a lot of case law that establishes the clear precedents for some of these things. These are just laws that are on the books, but they don't seem to be getting used very much, at least as far as what I've been paying attention to. But that doesn't mean that I want to be the example. Okay, so if you're in one of those states where it's dicier than in others, Oklahoma, Illinois, for example, Philadelphia, Atlanta, Alabama, Iowa, I think has something on the books. I think Virginia just put something on the books. We got to be a little bit careful, and I might have missed one or two in there. So I'm going to get my seller to tell me what they're willing to do, and we're going to put that under an agreement. But if they're not ideal to where I want to close right away, I'm like, look, I'm going to need 90 days to close on this. I'm not sure I can fund it because you want too much of this or too little time on this, too much monthly payment, too much price, too little time to pay you off, too much down, whatever it is. Now, the deal I'm going to show you here is, so I had the deal with the seller. They agreed to this. I went out to the market to see what the market would bring, and I got a buyer right away. The buyer that I got for that deal, it was going to be a decently profitable deal, but it happened to be a buyer who didn't want terms. They just wanted to buy they had good credit, good enough credit to get an FHA loan. They had enough of a down payment to get an FHA loan, a couple percent down. They had a realtor involved. The realtor is the one who called me telling me about this buyer because she saw the flat fee listing that I had. Actually, there's a funny call I think I have it. Well, I don't think I put it in the core course, but I did use it as an example. If you search realtor call, I think maybe funny realtor call in the portal, you'll find it. Oh man, did I beat this girl up? She was terrible. If y'all message me and remind me, I'll find that call and send it to you or link it to you, on Monday or something like that, or over the weekend. But it was really funny. I think I have it under realtor call. If you enter realtor call, it should pop up. Control F realtor call in Kajabi in the portal. What ended up happening is, like is Melvin on the call? Melvin might remember. Melvin was around when I played that call, I think. And I don't think any of the rest of you were. But the best buyer for the deal that I had was somebody who just wanted to buy it straight up, but it was going to be an FHA loan. So I was like, cool, man, in my head, right? Because I knew I was going to get a price on this house that was way higher than the price that I had with the seller, with my seller. So I was like, I'm going to make money on this if this closes, but how am I going to close it? And the reason this FHA loan is important is because for an FHA loan to be, this is why coaching is important, not to get into the whole thing on this, but there's so many nuances that you're just not going to hear from YouTube or from Facebook groups and whatnot. But, unless you get burned by a situation, then you'll know. But if you accept a buyer and you contract with somebody who's getting an FHA loan, that loan is not going to go through if you have not owned that house for at least 90 days. Well, I don't even own the house now, and I'm selling the house. So I knew that wasn't going to work. Now, investors who don't get coaching and they learn from like YouTube University and everything, just, they can't sell it. They don't know what to do. Investors like you who have come in here are going to know how to do this. So here's what we do in this kind of a situation. I'm like, well, I want to sell it to this buyer. It totally makes sense. But because the lender that they're bringing in is not going to approve the loan because I can't show that I've owned the house for 3 months, and this buyer isn't going to want to wait 3 months for me to own it, I'm going to lose them if I don't fix this situation. So what do? I fix the situation. Here is that situation. My buyer who needed the FHA loan was willing to pay about $35,000 more for the house than the price I had with the seller. The issue that I had was that the buyer needed this loan. I knew it would be a problem for me to be the seller because the FHA underwriting requires the seller to have owned the house for at least 90 days, like I just said. So I solved the problem by simply going back to my seller and letting them know that good news, and it was really good news because the terms that I had with the seller were they weren't even going to get paid for like a year. That's what I didn't like about the deal. He wanted to be paid off entirely in 1 year. And that wasn't going to allow me to milk enough profit out of the deal. He was going to let me take over the loan sub 2, I think pay a small amount down, but in 1 year I had to pay the full price for the house, which was $35,000 less than what I just got an offer on from somebody who wants to cash it out right away. So I went back to my seller and I let them know that they're going to get the price that they gave me in cash. What actually happened was I negotiated it a little bit lower. I said, look, if I can get you, your price and you don't have to wait a year, can you go a little bit lower? And they agreed to do that. I also have that call in the portal with the seller. They agreed to a little bit lower. Now, in order to accommodate this, remember, the seller just wants to get paid and move on with their life, right? So, but I had to let them know that there was there was going to be a slight change in the way that we closed the deal. So what I let them know is that the only way for me to get you paid right away on this, which I know what you want, and if you don't want to do it, it's cool, I'll just pay you in a year. But if you'd rather get paid like in 30 days, then, open your ears. What we're going to do is I'm going to let you contract directly with my buyer. I'm going to step aside and I'm going to let you contract directly with my buyer. Now, my buyer, you need to know, is paying me quite a bit more than what I'm paying you. So as a result, I'm going to cover all the costs of the sale so that you net out exactly what I agreed to pay you. Okay, you're going to net out at our agreed price. But I'm going to let you contract with that buyer, and then all the stuff that I have going on with that buyer and that buyer's agent's my responsibility, but you're going to net out at the price we agreed. You good with that? Nobody's ever not good with that, right? They're always good with that. So I explained to them that if you're good with that, this is what we have to do. I am going to have to prepare some additional paperwork so that everybody's protected, and I'll send a runner over there to do it, or you can use a mobile notary. We can send a notary over to your house, whatever. And I just describe it like that. I don't have to get into all the details that I'm about to show you. People just want to know that they're going to get their money. So they're elated by the idea of getting their money. They hadn't expected to get it for, in this case, a year. Now, here's how we handle it, okay? This is where you got to pay attention to what I'm saying.